Gina, wow, The Woman King. What an incredible film. Take us back to this journey and how it came your way and what made you want to tell this story.
It, I mean, foremost, I will start with Viola Davis and Kathy Schulman and Julius Tenen, who produced the film. They were fighting for this for 7 years to get somebody to believe in it. I came aboard in the last year once they got it up at TriStar. It was still in development, and then Black Panther, all praise the Black Panther, hit and proved something to the industry, and so it became something that was in development to, hey, there might be an audience for this. When the script came to me, it had Viola Davis attached, so that gets it to the top of any pile. I don't know any director who doesn't want to work with Viola Davis. Just she's greatness. But it came to me at the it's weird. It came to me at the right time and the wrong time because I just finished The Old Guard, which was 2 years of my life, and I had promised my family I was going to take a break. And then the script came, and I read it within 5 pages. I knew this, like I needed to tell the story, and that's how I make my decisions. It's got to be a have to because there's 100 things I would love to do, but this was a have to. It was everything I wanted to do. It was a historical epic. I love that genre, and I've always wanted to see us in that. And suddenly, here we are. You read these warriors rise up from the grasses. Like I wanted to shoot that, but it was also these women and the humanity and the sisterhood. It was just something I'd never seen before. So I remember reading it and saying, "Damn, I cannot believe I don't get to do this." But I sent it to to my husband. Hey, why don't you read this? And he read it immediately, and I still have the text. It said, "This is your next movie," and that was everything because as a mom, a wife, you like it's a family affair, and it sacrifices on both sides. And then my boys as well said, "Mom, go do this." So it was I was really blessed to do it, and it's been an incredible journey.
And to your point, the people saying there might not be an audience for that. Well, not only do you play, it's been, well, The Old God was viewed by 78 million households in the first 4 weeks, and The Woman King has grossed 54 million and counting, and there's a lot of Oscar buzz around it. I mean, thank you. Like, there are indeed audiences for your films, which we're going to talk about later, but how easy was it to get The Woman King made? Even with Viola Davis attached, with you attached, like,
I mean, I think the perfect example of our industry and how much work needs to be done when Kathy Schulman, one of the producers, she was running STX studio, and so she pitched it to her own studio, and they said, "Yeah, we understand. This is a really cool script. We can give you 5 million for it." That's what they thought the value of this was. So clearly, it didn't go there, but I mean, it's a hard thing when you do something that hasn't been done before with actors and characters that we haven't seen before. Obviously, Hollywood likes to look at comps and say, "Oh, this made money, so you're going to be okay." This wasn't Marvel. Obviously, they saw the success of Black Panther, but there was still hesitation on, would this be viable?
and at the first weekend, I remember going on TikTok. Yes, I have TikTok and Instagram, but you could see it all over social media, the reaction to it. Like, fans, women were coming out, bringing their friends, going repeated viewings. Like, what was that like for you to see? It's almost like I told you there's an audience out there of women who've been waiting for this film. Like, talk about that. And is there a favorite reaction that you have?
Yeah, and we can get into it. This was the hardest shoot of my career by far. So to be on this side of it is an amazing thing because, like, I knew the performance I was getting on set. It was undeniable, and I was thinking if I mess everything else up, at least I know I have these incredible performances. But to be on that set with these actors who gave me absolutely everything, every piece of them, their soul, their heart, their minds, their blood, their sweat, their tears. I wanted to come through for them because they believed in me and the vision so much. And so that's where all the hard work and the drive came from to, yeah, to be on this side of it. I mean, there's been incredible reactions. I think my favorite was that this woman recorded herself in a theater bathroom after they'd seen the film, and it was about 25 women, and they didn't all know each other, but they were all doing the battle cry together, um, and just feeding off each other, and that was like, wow, that's amazing.
That's a brilliant clip. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you seek it out today. It's so inspiring. But talking about your incredible cast, talk about how you found the perfect cast for this, including, you've got Viola, you've got John, and the incredible actresses that you have.
It's so it all again starts with Viola, and she's everything you would hope she would be. She is an incredible human, obviously an incredible artist. I would love to say that these actors came aboard because they were dying to work with me, but they all, they wanted to work with Viola, so it made it really easy. But it started when I read the script. Two names popped up immediately. The first was Lashana Lynch, who plays Azogi. I had seen her. I had seen her at the Essence Black Women in the Hollywood event. She was being honored, and she gave such an incredible speech about who she wanted to be as an artist, what she wanted to put out in the world. And I just thought, I want to work with her. And then the trailers for 007 started to come out, and she just looked badass. And I just thought, I believe her in that. And then the second was John Boyega as the king. I had loved his work. He's such an incredible actor. But it was the same thing. I saw a video of him during the uprising that went viral of him just imploring the world to protect Black women. And he thought that was going to kill his career. But for me, it made me want to work with him. And the beautiful thing about John is obviously he normally has lead roles, but he came aboard because he said, let me use my power to help you guys get this made. Let me support you and Viola. And that rarely happens in our industry for a lead actor to come in as a supporting and like really be that. He used to come on set even when he wasn't shooting, just to be there and watch these incredible artists. Tuso Mbedu, who plays Nawi, is just a generational talent. And she stars in Underground. That hadn't come out yet, though. So she was literally an audition. And we were auditioning over Zoom because of COVID. So it's just this face popped up on my screen. And I just immediately fell in love with her. Her face is just that she's got that innate vulnerability that makes you a star. And then she started talking, and her craft is incredible. She's an incredible artist. The only thing was she had never done anything athletic in her life, and I knew I wanted all the actors to do their own fighting and own stunts. So I was nervous. So I said, let me put her with our fight coordinator, Danny Hernandez. So had her come to a gym, and it was supposed to be an hour, but it ended up being 2 hours because she just kept wanting to learn more and more and more and get better and improve and improve. And that mindset, that's what you need to get through something like this. And so we cast her. I cast her in April. She started training in May and trained from May all the way through the end of the shoot in March. And that was 6 days a week, 2 times a day. She's incredible. And then Sheila Team, who plays Amenza. I give props to Terry Shropshire, my editor. She was on Bruised, Halle Berry's directorial debut, and she kept saying, I found your Menza, found your Menza. I'm like, all right, okay. And then I was invited to an early screening of it. And literally at the end of that film, the first thing in my head was, who was that? She's so incredible and striking. And I was like, okay, Terry, you were right. That's my Menza. And Hallie was so gracious in allowing me to show some scenes to Sony because Sony didn't know who she was. And they saw her. And at that point, it was undeniable.
Yeah. Didn't you get down and train with your actresses as well, like your entire cast? I think I've seen some videos of you.
Yes. But I mean, it's a couple things. So as I talked about too, but truly the level of training on this film was insane, but it was necessary because we had to build athletes, we had to build warriors, we had to build up their bodies so that they could get through this shoot. And so it was an hour and a half of weights in the morning, nap, and then 3.5 to 4 hours of martial arts training, weapons training, fight choreography, running. Running is really important to me. When you see somebody running in film and they look awful, it totally takes you out of the movie. So that was important. So as an athlete, I knew what they were going to be going through. And I even said to them, you guys are going to go online, you're going to see those cute videos of actors who have gone through it and they've cut it to music and it looks really cool and fun. And it's not fun at all. It's going to be hard. So I just wanted to be there with them to build our chemistry, to get them to trust me. And then it's free training. I got great uh, great trainers. But I do want to be clear. I had obviously had to direct a film too, so I was in there in the beginning. But I was doing one a days. They were doing 2 days. So
Talk about the historical significance and the research that you had to do to make sure this was, an accurate telling, because this has never been done before, right? And audiences are going to take this away. There's the book from which it was based on, right? Oh,
no, what it was not based on that book, and that's really important
okay.
to know. There's only one book that's been written about these women. And when you do a historical epic, I mean, I love the genre, and I know I go in and I look up on screen, and I'm assuming that most of that is historically accurate. I know, obviously, you create characters to put within that, but it was really important for us to be truthful and authentic. So that was a deep, 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 deep dive into research. And there's not a lot written by these women or this kingdom, which is, I mean, it's really sad because there's so much history out there that's just been erased or ignored. There is one book written, but we had to go past that because, and please, like if you go on Wikipedia, 95% of that is just not true. And what we had to do is really separate what was being written and understanding whose point of view is being written by. And so much of it was written way back in the day by people who had an incentive to dehumanize these women, this kingdom, the whole of Africa. And so we were very fortunate to have really great historians who are from Benin, who were able to, and ancestors of these women, so to be able to tell us the true history, as well as we found these great journals by two missionaries that went there around 1835, 1840, who it was like finally hearing about the beauty of these women, this kingdom, um, and then the difference between Ouida and the moral decay of Ouida. It was amazing. So it was a lot of connecting the dots and reading these different things and talking to these historians who could tell us everything from obviously the economics of what was going on and pushing to go to palm oil instead of the slave trade, in terms of the fact that men and women were equal in the council. And then we could ask them, how do you honor your dead? What did you eat? What did you eat out of? Like all those different things that are so great to get those details, we were able to get.
Amazing. So we mentioned the old guard. You got to direct an action movie. Talk about that and bringing that to Netflix and what it was like for you to tell that story.
Yeah, so the old guard was really important to me to do. I mean, foremost, again, it was a script I read and fell in love with. But I had made a definitive shift in my thinking about 6 years ago because it's very, very hard as a female director to get into that big sandbox. Just because you can't get in the room if you haven't done action. But how do you do action if you can't get in the room? It's just that thing that keeps us out. But I had wanted to do it. I love action films, and there's a absolute false narrative in Hollywood that women can't do action, that they don't want to do action, and that women don't want to even watch action. So you're breaking through all that. But once I made that shift in my head from I wish I could do that to I want to do that, then I just started taking steps. And the first step was doing Marvel's Cloak and Dagger pilot, And once you get the little Marvel next to your name, it absolutely opens things up. And that then led to Silver and Black, which was Sony and Marvel, which was a year and a half of my life. Unfortunately, it didn't go, but everything happens for a reason. And I just realized it just was not going to be what I wanted it to be. So walked away from that. But what gave me the courage to walk away from that, because that was a big deal to, it's like, dang, you have this opportunity. Why would you walk? But it was talking to Patty Jenkins, and Patty, she told me about her walking away from Thor. And as soon as she made that decision, Wonder Woman came, and we all know what happened with that. And so that was amazing to be able to talk to another director who had been through that. And then again, props to Patty Jenkins for killing it on on Wonder Woman, because that then opened the door for other women to get into that big sandbox. And so as soon as I walked away, the Old Guard script came to me, and the beauty of that is they actually said what what got me in the room, even though I know, of course, suddenly I'm on that tiny little list because they wanted a woman. Skydance did. They said what got me in the room was love and basketball, and so that was cool. Just because they wanted that type of character development within this big action film.
So many love and basketball, man, that film. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I mean, something that you do, you champion female voices on screen and behind the scenes. Like, I think with the Old Guard, you celebrate your creators and you had an 85% female crew. I mean, filmmakers out there, Gina's walking the walk and doing, talk about that and why that was so important for you in your filmmaking. And
It is. I have been on the other side of that door. I have been that person with the very tiny resume that wasn't because of lack of talent, but lack of opportunity. And I think probably the best example where it started from is Terry Shropshire. When I got Love and Basketball, it was my first gig, and I thought I need to get a guy that's got a ton of movies so that he can guide me through this, and as my editor. And then Terry had just done Eve's Bayou, a movie that I loved, and and Spike had said, "Hey, why don't you meet with this woman?" And again, love the movie, so I was like, "Great." And this is when I say this is not any disrespect. I mean, Terry only had 2 films on their resume. And so again, my first gig, I was like, I don't know. I know she's making faces back there. But we met, and it was an incredible meeting. And then after the meeting, she sent me a 5-page letter about why she needed to do this film. And I was like, I don't care that these other people have 10, 12 things on the resume. I want to be in the room with this woman who's so passionate about telling the story, and knowing that you're going to be locked in a room for, she doesn't like this either, but 14, 15, 16 hours a day. Like, I want to be in the trenches with her. And we have now done every single movie together, every single pilot, every single wedding video. Doesn't matter. Like, she is my ride or die. And so that's the thing I've learned in this industry. You've got to look past the resume, because what I do, and having more women and people of color on my crews is, again, it's not a PC thing. There is so much talent out there, and they make me better. They make the Woman King better. If you look at the crew and the HODs, it made the Old Guard. And the amazing thing is when you're sitting at a table at a production meeting, and for so many, when you have usually been the only one in the room, and now suddenly you're one of many, you just see the swagger, you see the confidence, you see that your voice, you're gonna be heard, you're gonna be listened to. It's an amazing thing what that does for people, and you just get more work, more passion, more hunger, and I'm really proud of the crafts of this film.
yeah. And you do have an amazing career, with all the films that you've made, but you've also had a lot of no's in this industry, in this, I was gonna say this town, but we're like we're in Middleburg, but in Hollywood. I mean, talk about like overcoming those no's and being determined to get these stories told, and how that's toughened you up.
Yeah, absolutely. This industry is about overcoming no. It just is. I say fortunate, and I can say fortunate now. Then it was devastating, but my first lesson with that was UCLA Film School, where I decided to go to UCLA because of their film school. It was the only place I wanted to go. It's the only thing I wanted to do, and I applied, and I didn't get in, and it was devastating because I just thought it was a given. But I ended up writing an impassioned letter to the head of the film school, telling her why she made a mistake. And 2 days later, she called and said, "I got your letter, and I'm going to let you in." And that absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. Um, so thank you, Ruth Schwartz, wherever you are. But that set the tone because every single film of mine was a no at first. Love and Basketball, every studio turned it down. Beyond the Lights, every studio turned it down. Obviously, The Woman King, it took 7 years. So, but that's why I only take things that I'm passionate about because that gets you up off the floor. Because it's hard to fight and fight when something's so clear in your head and nobody seems to understand it or see the worth in your stories. It can be devastating, but there's a great quote that I use, which is fall 7 times, stand up 8. And that is what this industry is. So again, if you're doing what you're passionate about, it absolutely fuels the fight.
Amazing. Let's talk about Love and Basketball, getting that made and what you remember. Take us back to that era.
Yeah, it's so crazy that it's over 20 years ago. Um, yeah, it was a film that was locked in my head. I wanted to be a director. I got out of film school, learned very quickly that nobody was throwing scripts at me like I thought was going to happen. Um, and so I wrote in television for 5 years, but the whole time I knew I wanted to direct and realized I'm going to have to write to direct. The impetus of Love and Basketball was When Harry Met Sally. I literally said, I want to do a black When Harry Met Sally because I love that film. And then it evolved into something much more personal. I said I'd give myself a year to write it, get it set up. And that turned into a year and a half. Props to my husband, Reggie Rock, who worked on it with me and was brave enough to say every time I was like, it's ready to go out. And he would say, no, it's not ready yet. Which, is dangerous as a husband to say. But he was right because in this industry, you have one chance to make a first impression. People will not read a script again. So you've got to make sure it's right. And finally went out with it, had a list on my fridge of all the studios and production companies that I was sending it to. Soul Food had just come out. I was like, this is going to be great. And literally crickets, like every single person turned it down. Every studio, every production company. I remember and I remember the last company, it was Egg Pictures, which was Jodie Foster's company. It's just locked in my head. I remember crossing that one off as the last one and just like, what am I going to do? I just spent a year and a half on this thing that I believe in and no one cares. And again, I'm about 2 days. 2 days is like my thing, I guess. But 2 days later, after that last cross off, the Sundance Labs called. And that was amazing. And they had heard about the script and asked for me to come in and meet with them. And I did, and they accepted the film into their program, the writer and director's program. And it's such an incredible program. And I had incredible writers giving me their thoughts, Scott Frank and Paul Atanasio and Kathy Bates. Like it was incredible. And then they put a reading on of the script and helped me cast it, invited the industry, and that's where Spike Lee's company saw it. And right after the reading, they came up and said, we want to do this. And that was amazing after that whole journey. Also at that reading, I had cast for the reading Sanaa Lathan, who I'd known through her dad. And she was insane in it, amazing. So I got it to Mike DeLuca, or Spike got it to Mike DeLuca at New Line. And I distinctly remember sitting outside of Mike DeLuca's office, and it was Mike DeLuca he was huge at the time, and I was literally shaking, and I said to myself, "You are about to choke. Like, you have this opportunity, and you're going to choke." Um, and then I had to say, "Where are you most comfortable in the world?" I was like, "Okay, the basketball court." All right, so just walk into the room like you're walking on the court, and it so helped me. So I have a little bop on the court, so I was like walked in, just fake it till you make it. But walked in, and it was such an incredibly warm room. The first thing he said to me was, "This is one of the best love stories I've ever read, and I want to make this." And when a meeting starts like that, it's like, oh, I can calm down a little bit. I don't have to pitch. And it was incredible. And he said, if you cast Alfre Woodard and Omar Epps, who were my first choices, I could have a discovery for Monica. And he asked me, how much money do you want? Or need? How much money do you need? And I said, 10 million. Just throwing that number. And he said, no, you're gonna need more than that. And that never has ever happened ever in my career again. Um, but it was an incredible meeting, and I walked out of there and I had a movie, and so went about casting it. And I knew Sanaa was incredible in that reading, but she had never, ever, ever, ever touched a basketball in her life. And I had made a promise to myself I was not going to cast a non-athlete in the film. And so I proceeded to go on a very long casting journey. We saw over 300 people for that role, and there were incredible actors along the way. But part part of the audition was, in the room. If you're a good actor, then the second part is on the court. It's amazing, and I get it. But so many women lie. They're like, "Yeah, I could ball," and then you get them out there, and no, you can't. And so it was just tough because, again, I'm a baller. I could not put somebody out there, but I couldn't get Sanaa's performance out of my head. So she was training on her own with her brother, and then because I kept her warm, because she was so good, and she had amazing chemistry with Omar. I did not know they were dating at the time. Um, so, and props to both of them. They never mentioned that. She never tried to use that. So finally, I got Sanaa with a basketball coach and a woman named Nisha Butler, who was an incredible baller, Miss New York, and got her with an acting coach. And literally, I just had those two on a parallel track for 3 months. Could not make a decision, and then finally, Sanaa's father, Stan Lathan, uh, who was my mentor, called me and said, "What you're doing is cruel, and make a decision." And because again, I was so myopic. It was like just about me and not realizing. And so I had this tape of these two women, and my my friend Mara was having her wedding shower. I literally brought the tape to her wedding shower, and just pulled her and a group of women aside after all the festivities and popped in the tape. I'm like, "What do y'all think?" And it was kind of split down the middle. And so finally, it was just a conversation with my husband where he said, "What is this movie? Is it a love story or a basketball story?" And I said, it is a love story inside a basketball world. And so then it was, you got to go with the actor, and chose Sanaa. Now I seem brilliant, but I was scared the whole time, and and she, and that call to her, which I thought was going to be euphoric for her. She was like, "Okay, thanks," because she was she was like so mad after being put through all of that. But I like to say all of that helped her build her career. Monica, this woman fighting for what she wanted, but we're great friends now. But it was tough for a minute.
20 years later. And it's now streaming on HBO Plus, HBO Max, Disney Plus, HBO Max. They're all so many streaming platforms. Okay, Shots Fired, the Fox series. Who's seen it? It's great, by
On
the way.
Hulu, gotta check that out.
There you
it is.
go. So I love the series. I love, again, you worked with Sanaa. And the opening episode has a poster of Serena Williams on the wall. I think right at the beginning in the bedroom. Talk about like those little details that you put into your films, like kind of like Easter eggs, and what that meant, the significance of that.
Yeah, I talk about greatness with Viola. I rarely use the word, but there's three. There's Viola, there's Serena, and there's Beyonce. Like that's greatness to me. Serena's always been my hero, and what she represents, who she represents, how she represents herself, and so I try and put her on the wall of almost everything I do, just somewhere hidden. And for Shots Fired, I just felt it just made sense that Ash, Sanaa Lathan's character, she had a daughter, and I just felt like she would have put Serena's poster on the wall as inspiration for her daughter. So made sure that that was front and center.
I love that. The series also challenges the audience to think about race, like, and the reality of America in 2017. And that seems like a lifetime ago, given everything that's happened. What is it like for you looking back on that series and, what you were trying to tell the audience with that in 2022?
I have never lost the belief that TV and film can change the world. Absolutely. It could change culture, perception, how you think. And so all of my work, all my husband's work, we want to entertain, but we also want to say something. And when you have the opportunity, a platform, like you gotta say something. And that was so important to us. We have two sons. It was just after Trayvon Martin being murdered, and it was like trying to explain to our kids why and how that could happen and how could they get past that, because they saw themselves in him. And so it was really our attempts to try to get the world to understand what these killings mean from our perspective. And to then be here and then go through George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I mean, it's you know, it's it is a tough thing as an artist. You just want to try and reach into people's minds and change. And Woman King. If you watch, there's an after scene in the Woman King, and that was certainly trying to tie what has happened in the past to the presence. And I use the name Breonna Taylor within that after scene. And so again, anytime we can use our work to try and get into people's heads, we will.
Now share some memories about Beyond the Lights and that journey and the inspiration for that film.
Yeah, Gugu Mbatha-Raw. She's the truth. Beyond the Lights was a film that came to me at an Alicia Keys concert. I was sitting there, she was singing Diary at the Hollywood Bowl, and suddenly the entire movie popped in my head. And that's an amazing, I love that when that happens. And so I just got excited about it. I wanted to talk about the industry, the music industry, the way that it felt like so many Black female artists had to come out hypersexualized, and then you get trapped in that persona. And how do you break out if that's not who you are authentically, and the damage that could do? So that was really the impetus of wanting to tell that story. It was another where I wrote it, put it out, nobody wanted it. Finally, after a year and a half, Sony said they would develop it, which meant it just sat there. But then I was like, well, then I need to cast this myself. They weren't paying for anything. So Aisha Coley, my incredible casting director, came aboard for free, and we started seeing some women, and she brought Gugu in. And Gugu, I knew immediately, God, she is the one. And it's interesting because that film, the lead actor was written as an American. Gugu came in with an American accent, and then as soon as we were done, that went away, and she started talking. I was like, "Oh, you're you're British." um, but there was something about it, the authentic. I mean, the whole film is about your true self, and it felt right. Let her be her authentic self. So I actually rewrote to make the character be British, and again to have my first film, the work ethic of Sanaa Lathan, like absolutely set the tone of how hard she trained and worked to be part of it. Gugu was the same thing. She spent 6 months working to become that character. And I mean, that character is 180 degrees from who Gugu is. And to be able to ingrain that narcissism and hypersexuality into somebody who was so prim and proper. It was like, I'm about to say beautiful, but it was a beautiful thing to see that transformation, but also because she gave everything to that character. And it also brought me Minnie Driver, who is an incredible woman. So it was just a really special film for me.
Amazing. Have you seen a change, like especially with the success of The Old Guard and The Woman King, and how Hollywood has been treating you? Like, have you seen like more scripts come your way or more calls? Like, talk about that shift.
You know, it's interesting. After Love and Basketball, I have been fortunate to get a lot of scripts sent to me. So the thing that I feel like has been discriminated against is the stories that I've wanted to tell, which is centered on Black women. Like those are the hardest stories to tell. So that path has been tough. I would say in the last couple years, it has brightened up a bit, and certainly after The Old Guard, like the world opened up, which is a beautiful thing. It made getting the Woman King, there was no question that I could do the action. So I don't have any question marks next to my name anymore, which is great. And I hope the next thing I want to do, well, there's two things, but one of them is something I want to write, a more personal story. I believe I'm going to write it and I'm not going to get crickets for the first time in my career. So I hope it's easier. I love what's happening in the industry. We have so far to go, but if you look at the films that are coming out this year, what I love is the diversity of content, where you can have The Woman King and you can have Till and you can have Nope, and like that's what we want, just us in every single genre and us being able to tell these stories from our lens.
I love that. Is there a genre that you would like to tackle next?
You know, yeah, one of the two that I'm thinking about is a genre that we have not been in, which I'm excited about. I can't talk about it yet. The only thing I don't want to do, and again, zero disrespect to people who do it, I just don't want to do horror. I just think there's too much evil in the world, and I wouldn't want to live in that for yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Gina, thank you so much for that incredible conversation. The Woman King is actually screening at the festival.